Korea, the past does not sleep. It lingers in the corners of quiet schools, in the hush of a bamboo grove, in the ripples of a forgotten well. These are not histories carved into stone or written in the king's chronicles. These are the stories whispered at night, from grandmother to child, from traveler to traveler, passed like firelight from one generation to the next. Some of these tales frighten children into obedience. Some remind the living of promises not kept. Some warn us of the price of betrayal. Lean closer. The ink of history fades, but the echo of fear remains. Tonight, Court of the Crane leaves behind kings and battles and steps into the whispers of Korea's wandering dead. Sit with us and listen, if you dare. There's a story from the countryside of a bride who never walked down the aisle. She died the night before her wedding, her shoes set neatly by the bed, her hair combed and tied with ribbon. In the morning, her family found her cold, her face as pale as paper. They buried her in the white robes of mourning. But her mother swore she heard footsteps outside the window at night, soft, dragging, as if her daughter had returned to try on her wedding shoes. The villagers began to whisper. Men walking home after sunset claimed to see a woman in white, standing at crossroads. She never spoke, but if they followed her eyes, they would find themselves walking in circles until dawn, their legs heavy, their lips blue from the cold. One traveler said he met her by an abandoned schoolhouse. She stood by the gate, hair falling over her face. He asked if she was lost. She lifted her head. Her eyes were empty, and her mouth stretched into a smile too wide to belong toward living. Some say that Mul Gwishin wanders because she envies the living, watching young brides and mothers with bitterness. Others insist she simply longs for the life denied her. But all agree, if you see a woman in white with hair unbound, do not meet her gaze, for her sorrow is endless, and she is always searching for someone to join her in it. In the old forests of Korea, where mist clings to the mountainsides and the moon shines over dark ridges, people tell of a creature both beautiful and terrible, the Gumiho, the nine-tailed fox. By day, she may appear as the most enchanting of women. Her hair flows like midnight silk. Her eyes gleam with warmth, even sadness. But at her core lies hunger, a hunger for the hearts and livers of men. It is said she lures them with her beauty, only to feast when their guard is down. But like all great tales, the Gumiho has many shapes, many endings. In some, she is only a monster. In others, she is a lonely spirit, cursed to walk in human skin, longing for love, yet driven by her craving. One of the oldest stories tells of a hunter who wandered deep into the forest. He came upon a woman, weeping at the edge of a clearing. She begged for his help, saying that she had been separated from her family, and she feared the night. The hunter was wary. He remembered the warnings of the elders. Beware of women found alone in the forest, for they may hide tales beneath their robes. So he invited her to his campfire, but he kept his distance. All night she tried to draw closer, her voice as sweet as a flute. But the hunter did not drink the wine she offered, nor touch the food she laid before him. And when the fire burned low, he pretended to sleep. At dawn, he opened his eyes and saw it. In the pale morning light, the woman's robe had slipped, and behind her flowed not one, but 9 great tails, swaying like branches in a storm. The hunter loosed an arrow, and the creature shrieked, not in rage, but in sorrow. She vanished into mist, leaving only a faint echo, like a fox's cry, fading into the trees. Some say that if a Gumiho refrains from killing and feeding for 1,000 days, she may truly become human. Others claim no such thing is possible, that a fox spirit's hunger is eternal. But even now, travelers who wander too far into the woods whisper that they hear her song, sweet, beautiful, and deadly. In the days of Joseon, death did not end obligations. Families feared an unmarried spirit would wander endlessly, jealous of the living, and so they created the hanbul, spirit marriage. Sometimes 2 deceased souls were joined, their graves linked by ritual, their restless cries silenced. But sometimes the living were bound to the dead. A grieving father would marry their son to a portrait of a departed girl, placing food and gifts at her grave. Such unions were not without consequence. Stories tell of men who dreamed of their ghostly wives, waking with the weight of invisible hands pressed upon their chest. Some claimed the ghost bride grew jealous of mortal lovers, driving them away in fear. Yet to refuse such a marriage was dangerous, for families believed the spirit's resentment would curse the household. Better to appease her, even if the groom trembled at night, listening for her voice in the dark. Water remembers the drowned. The Mul Gwishin are said to live in rivers, lakes, and wells, pale, wet figures with hair dripping like seaweed. They reach up to grasp the ankles of the living, pulling them down to share in their watery grave. Some wells were sealed with heavy stones after villagers claimed to hear voices echoing from within. Cries for help, or worse, laughter. Travelers whispered of rivers that called their names, tempting them closer until they slipped and vanished beneath the surface. Parents warned children never to lean over wells at night, for the Mul Gwishin envy the breath of the living, and once they pull you under, the world above will never see you again. On a lonely hill outside Gwangju stands a ruin. Walls cracked, windows shattered, beds left to rust. It was once Gonjiam Psychiatric Hospital. Now it is called one of the most haunted places in Korea. The reasons for its closure are tangled in rumor. Some say patients began to die without explanation. One by one, their bodies found in locked rooms. Others whisper of a director who lost his mind, experimenting on the very people entrusted to his care. The truth has never been clear, but the stories, they never stopped. Explorers who enter the hospital at night speak of sudden drops in temperature, as if walking into a freezer. Some claim to hear patients murmuring down the halls, voices muffled, pleading in the dark. One man swore he saw doors slam behind him, though the air was still. He ran, leaving his flashlight behind, too afraid to turn back for it. And then there are those who do not return. Hikers sometimes find bags or jackets abandoned in the forest surrounding the site, yet no one comes to claim them. Some say the patient's spirits wander the ward still, waiting for the care they never received. Others believe the hospital itself is cursed ground, a place where grief and madness have rooted so deep that the earth refuses to let them go. Even today, the gates remain locked, but locals will tell you. If you stand outside the fence on a windless night, you may hear it. The sound of footsteps pacing the halls of a building that should be empty. The story begins like this. You are walking home alone. The streets are quiet, and the night feels heavier than usual. Then you hear footsteps behind you, soft, steady, matching your own. You turn and you see her, a woman wearing a red mask. At first, you think little of it. Masks are common. But then she steps closer. Her eyes glint in the dark. And she asks the question, "Am I pretty?" If you say no, her eyes darken, and her blade flashes before you can scream. But if you say yes, she tilts her head, slowly, almost shyly, and pulls the mask down. Her mouth is slit from ear to ear, raw and gaping. She smiles, a smile that does not belong in this world. And she asks again, "Am I pretty now?" There are tricks, children say. If you answer, "So-so," she hesitates just long enough for you to run. If you drop candy or coins, she may stop to pick them up, sparing you. But if you hesitate too long, you will never answer anything again. Though the tale began in Japan, it grew roots in Korean cities. Students whisper about her in school bathrooms, warning each other never to walk home alone. Mothers warn their children not to linger after dusk. And even now, in narrow alleys lit by failing street lamps, some swear they still hear it. Footsteps, and a voice asking the question you should never answer. In bamboo groves, the wind becomes a voice. Folktales warn of Jukshin, ghosts that dwell among the stalks. Travelers describe seeing figures ahead, just out of reach. A friend walking too quickly, a child calling for help, a woman beckoning with pale hands. Each step leads deeper into the grove, until the path disappears and the forest swallows you whole. Some who return say they heard laughter in the rustling leaves. Others never come back at all. There was once a monk who wandered from village to village, carrying a moktak, a wooden drum carved for chanting. He was poor, but kind. Villagers welcomed him, giving him rice and shelter, comforted by the steady beat of his prayers. But one night, something changed. The monk was heard striking the drum long after prayers should have ended. Its sound echoed down the mountains, deep and hollow. With it came a chill wind, rattling doors and snuffing out lamps. By morning, one family found their youngest child lifeless, as if taken in her sleep. The next night, the drum sounded again, and another villager was gone. People began to whisper. The moktak no longer called to the heavens. It called to the dead. Frightened, the villagers begged the monk to stop. But he too was pale and trembling, claiming he no longer struck the drum by choice, that it beat itself at night,
no matter how far he tried to hide it. Finally, they say, the villagers stole the drum and buried it deep beneath the earth, sealing it with stones and prayers. The monk vanished soon after. But in some valleys, when thunder rolls and wind sweeps through the pines, people swear they can hear it. Talk, talk, talk. The hollow beat of the drum of the dead. Not every spirit in Korean folklore was a ghost. Some were tricksters. Long ago, in a quiet mountain village, there lived an old man. He was poor, but kind, with a smile that made even strangers feel welcome. Every evening, as the sun dipped low, he would wander into the nearby bamboo grove to rest his weary legs. One night, while he sat beneath the trees, he heard laughter, deep, mischievous, and not quite human. From the shadows stepped a Dokkaebi, a goblin-like spirit with a horn on its head, dressed in rags, carrying a heavy club. Now, Dokkaebi were known to cause trouble, making travelers stumble, turning gourds into toads, or playing tricks on greedy people. But this one seemed curious. The old man did not run, nor cry out in fear. Instead, he bowed politely. "Good evening, friend," he said. The Dokkaebi tilted his head. You're not afraid of me?" "Why should I be?" the old man replied. "You look like you could use some company." And so, strangely enough, the two became friends. Night after night, they met in the grove, sharing stories and laughter. The Dokkaebi, delighted to finally have a human companion, treated the man kindly. But the goblin was also mischievous. It wanted to test its friend. One evening, it asked, "Tell me, old man, what do you fear most in the world?" Now, the old man was clever. He knew that spirits sometimes use people's fears against them. So he thought quickly and answered, "Oh, terrible Dokkaebi, the thing I fear most is gold. I shudder at the very sight of it. If I were ever buried beneath piles of gold coins, my heart would surely stop." The Dokkaebi's eyes lit up. It cackled, clapping its clawed hands. "Then I shall give you the greatest fright of your life." And with a swing of its club, it conjured heaps of gold coins, tumbling, spilling, piling high until they covered the old man's yard. The old man gasped, clutched his chest, and fell back dramatically. The Dokkaebi laughed so hard the bamboo shook. But when it vanished into the night, the old man opened one eye, then the other. He laughed quietly to himself and began scooping up the gold. From that day on, the old man lived comfortably, never wanting for food or clothing again, all because of his wit and his friendship with a playful spirit. And so, the tale is told. In Korea, not all encounters with the supernatural ended in terror. Sometimes, the spirits brought trouble and treasure in equal measure, and it was up to humans to be clever enough to survive their games. Gisaeng were women trained in song, dance, and poetry, entertaining nobles in pleasure houses. But many lived short, tragic lives, discarded when their beauty faded, or betrayed by lovers' broken promises. Some stories say these women returned as ghosts. They appear as dazzling beauties, their smiles warm, their voices sweet. Men followed them willingly, until the Gisaeng revealed her true face, ashen, tear-streaked, hollow-eyed. Inns whispered to be haunted grew empty, for no man dared to sleep where the weeping Gisaeng lingered. For her vengeance was not against one man, but all men who betrayed. Every school has its ghost story. In Korea, the most feared lives not in classrooms, but in the bathroom. They say she waits in the last stall, where the lights always flicker, and the air feels colder than the rest of the building. Some children call her the girl in the red skirt. Others just call her Mul Gwishin. The story goes like this. A student slips away during class, footsteps echoing down the hall. The bathroom is empty, silent but for the dripping of a leaky faucet. The girl chooses the last stall, the one everyone avoids. She locks the door, sets down her books, and she hears it. A whisper. Do you want red paper or blue? Her heart pounds. She knows the rules. If she answers red, the ghost will slice her into pieces, painting the stall in blood. If she answers blue, the ghost will drain her life, leaving her skin pale, her lips as cold as ice. Some say there are other choices. Yellow paper means you suffocate. Green paper means you disappear forever. No matter the color, the end is the same. The only way to survive is silence. Do not answer. Do not look. Gather your books and run before she grows impatient. Even today, children whisper about her, daring each other to use the last stall alone. Some swear they've heard footsteps behind them when no one else was there. Others claim the whisper has followed them out into the hallway. Of course, teachers laugh. Parents scold. They say the ghost is just a story. But when the lights buzz and flicker in a school bathroom, and the air grows colder than it should be, even the bravest children hurry past the last stall. For who would dare risk hearing the question themselves? These tales are not carved in stone. They shift with each telling, grow with each generation, yet they endure, because in them we hear the echo of our own fears, loneliness, betrayal, the hunger for what was lost, the shadows of places we should never tread. Perhaps they are only stories meant to scare children, or perhaps they are warnings, whispered by those who walk where the living should not. So remember, if you hear a whisper in the stall, if you see a woman in white, if you hear a drum with no hand to strike it, do not forget, some stories are not only told, some are waiting. This has been Court of the Crane. Until we meet again, be well.